playthrough here. Today's video is going to be a different video than the normal. We're not going to be doing a guide today. We're going to be showcasing a new type of gameplay that I'm trying to get myself into. So as many of you people know, if you follow my videos and catch me live on Twitch, you'll understand that I usually play on the hardest difficulty in game, and I'm usually going for efficiencies and high production, high population builds, and just learning new mechanics and testing things out. As you can see here, we have the Crown Falls set up as a production island over here with lots and lots of production, and we have a little bit of space in preparation for tourism DLC. However, I don't do a lot of beautification in my cities. Normally when you have a look at my cities, you will find that they are usually very linear, very laid out, very organized, but they are not particularly pretty islands. And we go into an even more elaborate version of it. At least everything is facing the same direction on this island. But as you can see, we're normally going on pure population and efficiencies and difficulty on the gameplays. So today's video is going to be showcasing my first attempt at a beauty island, and a natural beauty island at that. So let's take a look at the island. So this is the island in question, and there's going to be a natural flow of the tiers of population, and there's going to be, in the earlier parts, actual breakdowns and different grades in the same tiers of population. So let's have a look at the actual Docklands first off. So as we can see here, we have a fairly clean and organized Docklands here with a few attraction items over here. We will be going through the island in daytime, and then we'll have a quick look at the island in nighttime at the end. As you see, I've tried to keep it nice and clean, organized, nothing too fancy. And we have our ending of the Docklands over here, and going into the natural beginning part of the harbour. And over here we have an industrial section over here for the loading and unloading from the Docklands. The few sets of ornaments. We have loads of little decorations and ornaments here. We have the workman's shed over here, and all the oil that's being offloaded and being transported through the rail network over here. And next to the center here, we also have our first look at a market that we've placed down with a few food stands, marketplaces, tiles and ornaments, and pathways leading to a little parkway for the kids, and a duck pond, and into a formal church area. And we've blocked this off with high brick walls, and we have hedgerows, and we have planters down here for what we're going to call the urns. So the first tier of actual population that we're actually going to look at is what we're going to have as the first tier of farmers. And I've tried to do this fairly organically, and it's going to be like a small hamlet for the woodcutters. We have a dirt path leading through some wooded area here into a communal area where we have a few farmers' houses around a communal garden with communal washing lines. And then, as it's a working garden with the lumbers around here, there has to be a foreman for this area, and he is gated off, and he actually has his own individual toilet and clotheslines and a few little ornaments here as well. He's supervising the hamlets down here. The next is the first close or street for the farmers that we're going to be utilizing. And as you can see, they start with a dirt path. There's no garden, however they do have a communal garden here, but it is going into dirt paths. And we have the central road here, and the center between the railway is dirt, and we're going into the next tier of housing over here for the farmers. And we actually have a newsstand, and while there is no individual separated gardens for the farmers here, they do have natural trees and grassland around their housing, and some of them even have their own toilets. So this is going to be the first true working class, and they have access to their fenced off grain farms out the back here. So there we go. And now we are going into the actual producing section here. So we're going to have our workers' clothes being gathered and produced here through the sheep farm, and we've kept the actual modules separated with the dirt path and feeders of hay bales and wood for the replacement fences for the destructive sheep around. Now for the upcoming working class section, we have a large clay pit here with mounds of clay back piled up, and we have a more organic section for the actual working class over here, and they have their own individual pub here next to the actual working class to keep them happy from all the hard day's work they've done here. And again, no individual gardens, and some of them have actually been stockpiling some of the clay themselves. I don't know what they're going to be using that for. And we even have a homestead here that is deciding it's going to actually grow its own food produce here. It has its own little potato farm. So we're moving on to the bakeries down here for the actual bread here. And then we go into the first true upper class of farmers here. And as you can see, the separation between the actual railway has gone into a fully grown out tree system here to make it more ornate. And we have the first estate area for the farmers, and they have individually fenced off gardens. They have toilets at the back. They even have orchards and closing lines and a fancy beginning to their estate here. As we see, they even have a fully dual pathway here in pavement, and they have their own individual corner shop here as well. Now, as you can see, each of the actual gardens is completely bespoke and set up individually for each one. And then we even go into a communal area here for celebration for the upper epsilon of the top tier of farmers here. So looking back at the farmers.
We can't shut the storeroom door.
Push harder. That's the farmers. And then we go into the working class, and they have their own highly densile market area with extension on the side, and they have their own pub here with park area at the back, which is beginning to get a little bit overrun, and a huge amount of toilets because they're probably going to be going through the drinking quite heavily with all the work they will be doing. They even have their own individual setup church. It's not as ornate or as posh as the formal one at the beginning of town, but they do have access to their own individual church and hospital, because we're going to be doing the first stages of industrial over there as well. So as we can see, the working class have their own medium fenced
Taken with a pinch of salt.
estate and individually fenced off gardens, each of them designed out here, similar as we have on the other one. However, we're beginning to actually get some form of lights to keep this area actually illuminated in the night time. Not trying to go too over the top with the actual ornaments and design here, but trying to make sure the majority of the space is filled with something, even if it is just grass or bushes, and just try to bulk it out. So we have the housing section over there for the working class, and again we have the working classes foreman section here. His posh garden, he has his own orchard, he has his own well, he has a couple of toilets in the back and at the side for any meetings he has to have, and he is washing all the extra clothing for the people that are coming through the area. And continuing into more of the workers here, we have our first true industrial area for the workers. And it is a high fenced off area here. So we're keeping this section of the working class separated from the rest, as they are doing all the industrial section here. They have their own harbour hit system here and public moorings here as well. But as we can see here, we have industrial, we have furnaces, we have brick factories over here, we have railway systems transporting the goods between the actual production buildings. So they have some form of speeding up of manufacture and transportation between the warehouse. Now we have the actual communal area here for the actual individual workers down here with their own fenced off communal garden. Lots of washing, as they're going to get very dirty in the industrial area. And then in what we're going to classify as the office section for the furnaces and whatnot, they have the posher section of housing over here. Again, all designed gardens, and they have their own individual recreation section here. And for those fans here, to get to the toilets, you have to pass through the maze. Not that we're evil, but if you want to go to use the services, you have to pass through here. Next, we will go into the first section of the Artisans here. I've done a slightly different design on the housing here. Trying to have central islands, and we even have, because we're getting into Artisans, propaganda here. And each of the actual buildings have been trying to rotate and design so it tries to have some form of shop front on the outside edge. And they even have hedge road fences along the outside edges and inner roads as well. And as you can see, we're beginning to get into these sections on the break between the railway systems as well. Now, these Artisans here have their communal gardens at the outside edge of the area and a little gated greenery section in the center. However, they do have access to a variety theatre here and the farmers area, and they have their own individual school here. So this is the public mooring here for the artisans that are coming in for day trips and going out for their socializing trips. And then we have our artisans that are in the upper epsilon. So they have their own fenced off estate. They have a wide dual carriageway, and they have lighting down the center and individual promenades and much larger back gardens fenced off from each other, and a lot more high tier ornaments in the back garden. We even have over here, let's go away from the propaganda. Oh, propaganda's still going. We have in this section for the artisans a lot more of the artisanal marketeers here. They're making their own pigs.
We put our love into
This section is growing his own potatoes and orchards. And this guy is making his own grapes and vineyards over here. This is for the artisanal marketplaces that can be charging an arm and a leg for all those expensive goods that nobody wants to buy. And because we are getting into the propaganda section, we have our propaganda leader on our production islands housing here. He has his own individual meeting area in the back and staging section that he can do all his talks to his anarchy members here. And then in the back here we have the supporting house for his workers, with loads of extra clotheslines and storage for any of the propaganda meetings that go on here. Next, we are going into what we're going to be classing as the central section for the island, where the mayor's island is, and the mayor's house. And before that, we get into the communal water park section here. Try to keep the paths not the bigger ones, trying to keep some natural grass around the actual pathways. We're using the canal systems and water and the actual swan park here as well. Then we have our market section where people can buy memorabilia. And then we have a little parkway section here with a Ferris wheel and a roller coaster and some attractions for the children and family members here that are coming to visit the mayor. So speaking of the mayor, let's have a look in here. This is the front section here. We have some natural trees around the outside edge. There is some waterways and topiary gardens, and we're utilizing some of the World Fair gates here to separate the central road down here as well. So you can see, nice straight run down to the actual mayor's house here, and we're using the members club for this. And then in the back, we have the mayor's back garden. He has his section here for his banquets and dancing with his members. He has his own individual dining area over here and memorial section for his family. And he does like to do some competitive chess playing. And the back section is for his ever so pleasant children. Their own back garden with giant Christmas tree, play dirt mound, and Ferris wheel over here, and a fountain over that section there. So let's zoom out a little bit. So let's take in the Artisans section over here and the Mayor's Island over there. So next we get into the engineering section. And before we get into the actual housing for the engineers, we actually have the actual power generation for the island over in this section. We have the fancy fenced off power station here with backup cooling station at the back and its individual fire station. Try to keep the road systems nice and open and interesting with all the archways here. And then in this section we actually have the actual extraction of the oil, making it very industrial with lots of extra railway systems and depots and fueling stations just to make it looking a lot more industrial. Got steel mills over in that section, lots of warehouses, a few other random ornaments and other construction buildings just to make it look like a much busier section over there. So we get into the engineering section over here for for their wharf. So they're going to be extracting the glass for the actual construction because they're going to be getting into electricity and a lot more glass for their houses over here. And they have a much cleaner and posher market section over here. A lot more food,
Of a virtuoso.
a lot more production, and we have bookending variety theatres here as well for the ever non-stopping choices of theatre they can go and actually watch. And then the actual engineering houses, as they're engineers, they're not too fussed in regards to gardens. However, they are sharing communal back gardens here, and each of them are broken up with fences, and we're using the picket fences from the Christmas pack as they do actually have lights on them. So there is a very dim incandescent light that comes off from these fences as well, just to brighten everything up. A few brighter deck chairs in the back garden. We'll try to keep the front and back edges organised and clean and straight for the actual engineers' houses, because they much prefer keeping everything clean and straight. Then for their recreation, they have a bunch of the World's Fairs pavilions bookended with the actual gatehouses. This is where they can have all their meetings and catching up, and there can be stalls inside here as well. And then they have a much more formal water and garden center here. Then we have the emergency service section over here with a bunch of police stations, fire stations, an extra school, the palace. That's where all the EMT and the emergency services are being issued out. So, last section is going to be the banking and World Fair section and the investors. So first thing we'll actually have a look at is the World's Fair section over here. Try to keep this slightly interesting in regards to its roadways and its pathways and railway systems. Speaking of which, that needs to be completed. I'm not sure why that wasn't. So we have a double parallel train track system. We have box junctions for actual roads on the corners and in the centerpieces. We have museums, and we have botanical gardens on the outside edge just for formal buildings. We have access to police stations on either side. Try to brighten up with the city-like packs items as well. That is just leading straight into the central promenade towards the bank here, or like a European plaza section leading toward the actual bank. And then out back, there is some quiet areas out here with some water gardens and another large Christmas tree. And then we go into the actual education center for the investors. Public schooling here with a university and school in proximity to each other, because we don't want the investors' educated children mingling with the lower classes, do we? And then they have their own backup generation, and they even have a backup of the backup with a gas power station there as well. So the investors try to keep it nice and clean and nice and simple. They have really wide central promenades here with topiaries and then flower gardens in between each. Lightings down the center. All the housing's organized and kept clean and straightforward. They don't really care about own personal gardens, as they have the central promenade down here.
Nothing remotely strange about a person such as my...
And that is where we've continued this off with their own individual side streets and main promenade here, where everything's leading off. Trying to keep a little bit of natural gardens and trees on the outside edges. So let's just have a quick zoom out. So investors, banking section, engineers, leading all the way to the lower class section over there. So let's have a look at this in nighttime. So we'll start down at the Docklands area here. So you can see we have the lighthouses section up here, and then we have lighting in the market section for where people getting in and out of the Docklands. And then there are some houses that have some form of incandescent lighting out here. As you can see, very little lighting down. Until we get into the actual working classes. They actually have some street lamps down here. They're only going on the main cross section. They're not running into the back section. There is some lighting in the recreation area for the workers' industrial section. However, as soon as we start getting into the artisans, you can see we're going to getting slightly more and more light. They even have it running through the actual central gap between the railway systems, and the actual housing area is nicely lit up as well. And there we go, we have the artisanal marketeers here with the propaganda section here. Nicely lit up main street, but their back gardens is nice and dark and dim. Then the maze, the front section is nicely lit up. We have the promenades giving it a nice little soft light on the pathways in case people want to take walks in the night. And then we get into the engineering section. As you can see, we have the incandescent lights from the actual fencing, and it's getting a lot brighter and a lot more fancy over here. Then their garden is going to be walked at day and night, so this is just pure lit up over here. And then we go into the investors and the World Fair section. Everything is lit up, everything is bright, day or night. There's going to be people passing through this area. Heading towards the bank section. Everything again, all brightly lit up. School is not particularly lit up as it's going to be used during the daytime. And then, as you can see, investors is quite bright over here. It never stops. Well, hopefully you've enjoyed today's tour of my very first attempt at making an island look pretty and beautificationed. If you do have any feedback, I do appreciate any comments down below. I'll catch you on the next one. Now, if you like the video, I do appreciate any subscriptions to the channels and likes on the videos. If you want to catch me live streaming, you'll catch me on Twitch 6 days a week. Take care and stay safe.